About 100,000 years ago, the earliest Homo sapiens woke up every single day in a world where survival was never guaranteed. There were no cities, no permanent houses, no laws, and no organized protection of any kind. There was only the environment, vast, unpredictable, and often hostile. Life offered no stability. Every sunrise brought uncertainty. The search for food, water, and shelter was constant. A single mistake could be fatal. There was no room for carelessness. And yet, it was in this exact world that humanity began to establish itself as a species. But surviving in this environment was not just an individual matter, it was a group matter. Humans did not live alone. They organized themselves into small groups, usually between 20 and 50 individuals. This number represented an extremely efficient balance. Larger groups would quickly deplete local resources, leading to starvation. Smaller groups would be vulnerable to predators or even conflicts with other humans. Between these two extremes, an ideal size emerged, large enough for cooperation and hunting, small enough for mobility. Every person depended directly on the group. Isolation almost always led to death. And this dependence also shaped how they moved across the land. These groups were nomadic. Staying in one place for too long meant exhausting everything around them. When that happened, there was no choice. They had to move. They walked long distances following natural patterns, animal migrations, plant availability, and sources of water. This movement was not random. It was based on knowledge accumulated over generations. Everything they owned had to be carried. Tools, animal skins, simple objects, and especially children. There was no accumulation, only what was essential. This constant mobility shaped both the human body and mind. Physical endurance, spatial awareness, and rapid adaptation became essential traits. But living in constant movement created an even greater challenge: how to secure food every single day. For this reason, the foundation of their diet came from gathering. Fruits, roots, seeds, and leaves made up most of their nutrition. But this was far from simple. It required deep knowledge. They knew how to identify which plants were safe, which were poisonous, and which had medicinal properties. This knowledge was not written down. It was passed orally, observed, and practiced daily. Hunting complemented this diet. But hunting was not just a matter of strength. Humans were not the fastest or the strongest. Their advantage was strategy. Coordinated groups could surround, exhaust, and bring down larger animals. This type of cooperation required communication, planning, and trust. When a large prey was successfully hunted, every part was used: meat for food, fat as an energy source, skin for protection against the cold, and bones for tools. Nothing was wasted. And within this system of hunting and gathering, something emerged that would change everything: the fire. And it was one of the most important elements of human life. It provided protection against predators, allowed food to be cooked, and extended the usable hours of the day. Despite the absence of advanced technology, humans already demonstrated remarkable technical ability. Stone tools were produced with precision. Sharp blades, spear points, and scrapers were created using refined techniques developed over thousands of years. These tools were not improvised. Each one had a specific function. This level of specialization reveals something important: planning, the ability to imagine the outcome before creating the object. This is a milestone in cognitive evolution. And as these tools evolved, group life also had to adapt. There were no formal power structures as we know today. There were no kings or written laws. Decisions were made collectively, often based on the experience of the oldest members. Leadership was situational. Whoever had the most knowledge about a specific situation would take the lead at that moment. Men and women had different roles, but equally essential ones. Gathering, mostly done by women, provided the daily food base. Hunting, more commonly done by men, complemented it. Child care was shared. This increased the chances of survival. And since there was no separation between learning and living, learning happened through observation and practice. Children followed adults, imitated behaviors, and gradually took on responsibilities. This process was continuous. Every activity was a learning opportunity. But even with this organization, the environment remained extremely dangerous. Predators competed directly with humans. Large felines, wolves, hyenas, and other animals represented real threats, especially for isolated individuals. Avoiding confrontation was often the best strategy. Survival depended not only on courage, but on intelligence. Knowing when to retreat was just as important as knowing when to attack. In addition to animals, diseases, injuries, and food shortages were constant dangers. Mortality rates were high, especially among children. There was no sedentary lifestyle. A natural diet and constant activity resulted in strong, functional bodies. But this did not mean a long life. Few reached old age. Humans already showed symbolic behavior. Adornments made from shells, the use of pigments, and engraved patterns on objects indicate the presence of culture. These practices go beyond immediate survival. They show that humans were already searching for meaning. Group identity was beginning to form, and the way they dealt with death also reveals a lot about these groups. In some cases, the dead were carefully buried, sometimes accompanied by objects. This suggests respect, memory, and possibly beliefs about continuity after death. Even without organized religious systems, there was already a perception that life extended beyond the physical. But these groups did not live in isolation. At times, they inevitably encountered one another. Encounters between different human groups varied. They could be peaceful, involving exchange of information and objects, depending on the situation. These interactions allowed knowledge to spread and prevented genetic isolation. Cooperation, even between different groups, was already part of human dynamics. And these encounters had a direct impact on how humanity began to spread across the world. The planet was constantly changing due to climate shifts. Periods of dryness and humidity altered the environment, forcing groups to adapt. This ability to adapt was essential. Over thousands of years, these groups expanded into new regions. There was no global planning, only local responses to immediate challenges. This process led humans to occupy different parts of the world. And even with this continuous expansion, something remained constant. Despite all their differences, they were, in essence, just like us. They felt fear, joy, pain, and affection. They formed bonds. They cared for one another. The difference was in context. They lived without comfort, without predictability, but with a direct connection to the environment and to their group. And in the end, all these environmental differences hide a much greater truth about who we truly are. 100,000 years ago, humans did not dominate the planet, but they already possessed everything that would one day make it possible: intelligence, cooperation, adaptability, curiosity, Every decision, every movement, every learning experience contributed to the survival of the species. Without them, nothing that exists today would be possible. Human history did not begin with cities or civilizations. It began there, in small groups, around fire, in a world where simply surviving was already an achievement. And in a way, it still is.